Tonight on One News, agreement in Poland. World leaders decide on a rulebook on how to curb climate change, but doesn't go far enough. We can halve the number of road deaths and serious injuries. That's the government pledge as it announces more than $1 billion to fix up our most dangerous stretches of road. And hoping for a love affair, two takahe are flown to a new home with hopes they'll become a breeding pair. Kia ora, good evening. After delays, arguments and years of talks, the world's leaders have now agreed on how to limit climate change. The decision was announced to wide applause earlier today at the COP24 climate conference in Poland. Nearly 200 countries thrashed out a 156-page rulebook which aims to deliver the goals of the Paris Agreement from 3 years ago. That is, to limit a rise in average world temperatures to well below 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. The rulebook says how countries will report and monitor their greenhouse emissions. For more on the decision, the BBC's science editor David Shookman reports.
This is what it's all about. Gases released into the air that heat the planet. And after some long, difficult arguments, the world has inched towards a deal for how to reduce them, to try to avoid the risks of dangerous levels of warming in future. The talks at Katowice in Poland saw delegates from nearly 200 countries haggling over rules for how to tackle climate change. A slow process, but eventually a deal was done.
It is so decided.
The Polish official chairing the talks was incredibly relieved. He was urged to take a bow. But there are questions about what's actually been achieved.
We have now clear rules for transparency, for finance. We made a major step.
It is our responsibility to take this planet as one where we could live. And this generation has to deliver, and we've now said how we deliver.
The big challenge is that many countries, including Poland, rely on highly polluting fuels like coal. Thousands of jobs depend on them. Some campaigners say a few governments drag their feet, but others are pleased to have got this far.
We've seen countries come together, they've responded to the science. They haven't done enough, but they have done what's possible here. They've lent in, they've agreed some rules, and they've set themselves a job to go home and do more and work out what they're going to do, engaging with their citizens, their businesses, their investors to say, how can we take more climate action?
The hope is for a transition to cleaner forms of energy like solar power. The deal in Poland may encourage that. The world is responding to the threat of global warming, but not nearly with the speed that scientists say is needed.
And speaking from the COP24 in Poland, New Zealand's Climate Change Minister James Shaw says although the agreement provides, quote, a very significant step forward, there's still more work to be done.
No, countries are not doing
Greenpeace is even more critical, saying today's agreement isn't progressive enough.
Plainly, it goes nowhere near far enough. The commitments that have been made would result in 3 to 4 degrees of warming globally, which would be an absolute catastrophe for us and our children. So until we reduce emissions further, we're nowhere near where we need to be.
Leaders at Katowice have agreed they'll meet again for another round of talks in 2020. And we'll have more on the effects of climate change in Antarctica later in the show. 160. That's the number of deaths and serious injuries the government says it can prevent each year with its new road safety program. An investment of $1.4 billion will see almost 900 kilometres of safety improvements made to New Zealand's most dangerous roads. But the opposition says it's a poor substitute for the 4-lane highways it's planned to build. Kate King reports.
On average, one person dies on our roads every day, a serious injury every hour. But now the government says it will cut those figures by almost half.
We will save 160 deaths and serious injuries each year once these improvements are in place.
It's spending $1.4 billion on a 3-year program to make our highest risk roads safer.
No other industry accepts hundreds of people dying every year as normal.
The money will be split evenly between state highways and local roads and is part of the government's wider land transport project. Every region is set to benefit, but so far the area gaining the most is the Bay of Plenty, where up to $150 million has been put aside for 4 projects.
The safety improvements will include more side and median barriers, rumble strips, shoulder widening, and a look at further reducing the speed limit in dangerous hotspots.
But the opposition has called it a half measure and says its Roads of National Significance program would have delivered more benefits.
Single lane state highways with a bit of wire, nowhere to pass and lower speed limits is a very poor substitute for the highly engineered 4-lane state highways that National is building.
If anything, we're going to be able to deliver far greater improvements across the road network as a whole than simply by focusing on short sections of very expensive 4-lane motorways.
Warkworth's firefighters are often first on the scene at serious crashes. They say this will help reduce deaths in their area, but it's not enough.
Nothing's going to beat the new motorway when it goes through, if it goes through. That's the best option, but it's many years away and lots more money.
Some state highway improvements are already underway, but local projects will be announced early next year. Kate King, One News.
Visit the Kiwi Way is the slogan of a new Department of Conservation campaign aimed at educating tourists and locals on how to behave on precious conservation land. The launch of the Visitor Behaviour campaign has been prompted by the massive growth in numbers expected to visit our national parks this summer. Lisa Davies has the exclusive.
Winding their way through picturesque conservation land at Castle Hill.
They're called limestone karst rocks.
But with the number of people visiting this area doubling in the last decade,
we've just got some lolly wrappers and some tissues today.
It takes a lot of effort to keep it looking so good.
Just on sheer numbers, the problem is increasing.
It's hoped this campaign,
whether you're local or you're here on holiday,
will make a difference.
It means using a toilet, not the bushes.
Or holding on until your next available dunny.
Our national parks see over 3 million local and international visitors each year.
Respecting the wildlife.
It's costing the government $3.5 million to remind the people to give wildlife space at least 20 metres and don't feed them, take litter with you, use the toilets, always be prepared, and check if your drone needs a permit.
New Zealand's really special. People come to enjoy our wildlife, our natural places. They need to do the right thing. This is about some messages, how they can do that, how they can treat Aotearoa like home.
It's hoped that by the time people get to conservation land like this, they will have seen the messages on Facebook, in visitors' centres or on posters that will be put up around the country.
When you see a nice place, you just keep a nice place.
I think it's awesome, really important to keep places like this clean and, nice and pretty for all of us to see.
There will also be 25 extra rangers at holiday hotspots.
I only know 2 words in Chinese, ni hao.
Ni hao.
Ni hao.
That would be great.
Some messages will be in Chinese and te reo, reminding people, tourists and locals alike, to look after precious places like this. Lisa Davies, One News.
Lower Hutt is struggling to cope with a massive increase in the number of homeless people fuelled by rising rents. It's historically been an accessible and affordable housing area, but the squeeze on rentals is now cutting many people out. Kate Nichol-Williams has more.
For this new resident of Lower Hutt, having a normal Christmas isn't an option this year.
I had to leave my housing situation, I had to leave my job, I had to leave my supported community that I was living in and that I had brought my kids up in. I had to leave my family just in order to be safe.
Women's Refuge helped her escape after being left in hospital from an abusive relationship. She's in temporary accommodation now, her daughter and son also in the same one bedroom.
It's been really hard. Just because of the affordability of the houses around the Lower Hutt. They're just not realistic for me as a single mum.
Women are needing a bed through the local refuge for longer and demands increased.
We're appealing to the hearts of people because if some landlords would be prepared to offer their places at a lower price, that would make it affordable.
The only option left for this woman, Housing New Zealand.
Been on that housing list for 6 months now.
And she's not alone. In the 12 months till June, the Lower Hutt public housing wait list increased by 85%.
I have nephews sleeping in the doorway over there, one down under the bridge or down over there in the tent. This couple live by Salvation Army.
This Epuni site is one of several Housing New Zealand is planning to build on. It says in the next 3 years there will be an extra 270 state homes in Lower Hutt. But the local council says that alone doesn't meet the need.
Response to homelessness and the situations that people are enduring now in Lower Hutt.
The council's creating a homeless strategy, saying emergency accommodation grants have nearly doubled from this time a year ago.
We need more suitable temporary accommodation for people to stay in so that they're not in hotels.
A proposed action plan on how the council will help will be delivered next March. Kate Nicker-Williams, One News.
Greece has intercepted a massive drug haul valued at more than $166 million in a Syrian ship bound for Libya. Around 6 tons of processed cannabis and 3 million super-strength Captagon amphetamine pills were found inside containers under false floors and concealed between layers of coffee, spices and wood shavings. Captagon became known as a stimulant drug for ISIS fighters and also a fundraising tool for the group. The ship and its crew have been seized. There have been more arrests and scuffles in France between police and yellow vest protesters in a 5th weekend of demonstrations. The numbers of those taking part in the marches have dwindled, but the die-hard participants are demanding the government listen to their grievances. The BBC's Lucy Williamson reports from Paris.
The tactics were the same as always, but the tension here has waned. The number of protesters in Paris today, less than half that of last weekend.
Well, there are far fewer people gathering here in Paris today, but there are still a few confrontations between protesters and police, like here on the Champs-Élysées. I think the security forces will be hoping this is the last final stand of the hardcore.
This was a test of whether President Macron's concessions this week have worked. 10 billion euros to help those on the lowest incomes. Not enough for some. The violence of previous demonstrations in Paris, along with the government's concessions and the impact of a terrorist attack in Strasbourg this week, have all helped dissuade protesters. But protest sites around the country are settling in for Christmas, and it's not just the troublemakers left behind. At La Ciotat tollgate, 45 minutes outside Marseille, the demands are no longer just economic, they're also about democracy and access to power. President Macron says long-term solutions to this crisis lie at the local level and that he wants to meet mayors, region by region, to hear their concerns.
President Macron has ignored us from the moment he came to power, and now, all of a sudden, he wants us to come to his rescue. Can I be honest with you? The idea of a national consultation is absolute rubbish. Everything will carry on just like before.
The clashes here seem to be losing some momentum, but the frustration that sparked them hasn't been resolved. There's a part of France that feels precarious and invisible. For the past few weeks, it was visible to all.
Now, still to come here on One News, criticism over Australia's controversial announcement on Israel's capital. Could it be putting its own people at risk? Untouched and unlooted, archaeologists celebrate the discovery of a 4,000-year-old tomb in near-perfect condition. So what secrets will it reveal from the 5th dynasty? And talk about pressure, the arranged marriage that has the survival of a species resting on its romance. Here's hoping Fife and Mulgrew hit it off.
1.
Australia has been warned it could be endangering its own citizens after announcing it's accepted West Jerusalem as Israel's capital. It's just the 4th country in the world to do so. Israel's response has been tepid, while Palestinians have condemned the decision and urged caution.
The bottom line is that it could spark violence here in Australia.
Yes, this is a very sensitive issue, and because of that, it could.
Australia says it won't move its embassy from Tel Aviv, though, until a peace settlement is achieved. And staying in Australia, a freak storm left much of Melbourne underwater this weekend, with flash flooding leaving some motorists stranded on top of their cars. 9 News correspondent Sam Kuchiara reports.
This isn't a scene out of the Titanic, but Flinders Street Station yesterday afternoon. The city going under in a matter of minutes.
Oh, wow.
As Melbourne copped a summer soaking. Roads resembled swamps, backyards, fast-moving river rapids.
All the water's coming through the fence.
Peak hour commuters waded through the makeshift lagoons, this man getting creative and paddling home instead, while in the suburbs they made the most of it and went surfing.
Mac.
Many drivers became trapped in the deluge, forced to wait it out until help arrived. Other cars didn't stand a chance, falling apart in the flash flooding.
What happened to the car?
Residents could only watch as homes were inundated. By first light, the extent of damage was revealed as the massive clean-up began. Battered properties, a common sight. Here at this beauty salon in Toorak, it's extremely lucky clients weren't sitting in these chairs when the ceiling came crashing down early this morning. The plaster has blanketed much of the store, causing tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage. One of the workers had just arrived, seen here on CCTV, scurrying to safety.
There was a lot of glass breaking, bangs, and just, very crazy.
At this nearby townhouse, the underground parking system most likely short-circuited in the rain, catapulting a Jeep into the home's balcony. The weather event has hammered the state for the past 48 hours, and it's not over just yet.
Facebook has breached the privacy of nearly 7 million users through a software flaw. The bug allowed hundreds of apps to access photos which hadn't been shared. Users were exposed over a 12-day period in September. It's the latest in a series of privacy scandals dogging the company recently, including the improper use of 50 million users' Facebook data for political advertisements. Archaeologists in Egypt have discovered the well-preserved tomb of a royal priest, believed to have died 4,400 years ago. It was uncovered in Giza, just south of Cairo. Inside are 5 shafts, 4 of them sealed, and it's expected they'll contain a coffin and objects buried with the owner of the tomb. More excavation work will be carried out in January. Scientists have left Wellington today on a voyage to understand more about New Zealand's largest fault, the Hikurangi subduction zone. The project will see high-tech instruments put on the sea floor off the east coast to record movements. Subduction zones are where 2 plates meet, creating a fault responsible for large earthquakes and tsunamis.
The idea we're trying to test here is maybe fluids are a part of this story, that where there's more fluids, you may have less severe earthquakes or less frequent severe earthquakes.
2 further trips will be made over the summer, another from Wellington and one from Auckland. A mission to rescue one of our most endangered birds has brought a very special pair to what's been dubbed the Love Island of the Hauraki Gulf. Rotorua Island, just east of Waiheke Island, is now home to 2 young takahe who have been expertly matched in the hope they'll start a family. Jenny Saw reports.
Who says takahe can't fly? 1-year-olds Mulgrew and Fife on the last leg of their journey from Fiordland to their new island sanctuary.
Well, we're hoping for a budding romance. Fife and Mulgrew will have children, and then the children will grow to a certain age, and then they get taken back down to the South Island, where Doc retrains them to eat tussock and then pairs them up, and on the romance goes.
Takahe once roamed in large numbers, but habitat loss and predators almost wiped them out. They've been brought to Rotorua Island to join 5 others as part of the Department of Conservation's Takahe Recovery Program.
The department looks at the genetics of all of the birds that they've got, and they pair up on that basis.
The island's predator-free. The only large creatures here have arrived to welcome the birds to their new home.
I've actually brought monkeys, not takahe. Is that all right?
The takahe were named after farmer Alexander Fife and adventurer Peter Mulgrew. Peter's great-nephew with this special honour.
There he goes. There it goes.
It's a bit nerve-wracking, opening it.
It was a shock just to be able to be here and watch the take be released, and it was really, really nice to find out that I'd actually be able to release one.
Takahe were thought to be extinct until about 70 years ago when they were rediscovered in Fiordland. Now there are 377 of them, if you include the chick born here last month.
When you've got only a small number in a species, you've got to keep expanding that genetic base. We're up to 370 when we were probably down to less than 100 not so many years ago. It was pretty fantastic.
Fantastic for the lovebirds and bird lovers.
It makes the hairs on your arms stand up.
Kind of like taking a step back in time because they seem quite old, New Zealand, almost dinosaur-y.
A New Zealand relic with a chance at a future too. Jenny Saw, One News.
Now, just ahead on One News, how ice crystals at Antarctica are helping scientists better understand climate change. And a tip on how to ensure you don't come out of the festive season looking like Santa.
And it's a fine start to the working week for most of us. However, wet and windy weather arrives on Tuesday, working us over from the south. What to expect and the day's temperatures for you after sport.
Our top stories tonight here on One News. A $1.4 billion road improvement program has been launched to help make our roads safer. The government's hoping the improvements to our most dangerous routes will help save 160 deaths and serious injuries each year. Greenpeace is criticising the set of rules agreed to by world leaders in relation to limiting the planet's rising temperatures. The deal was announced in Poland a few hours ago, a 156-page rulebook which aims to deliver the goals of the Paris Agreement. But Greenpeace says it goes nowhere near far enough to avoid the impacts of a warming planet. As the world's leaders decide how to stop the world's temperatures from rising, scientists are studying changes in Antarctic ice to help them better understand climate change. There's been an increase in sea ice around the continent, but there's concern that's only because of a gradual melt of the ice shelf. Lisa Davies has more.
Delving deep through over 2 metres of solid sea ice. To better understand this ice, platelet ice, which runs another 4.5 metres down.
We're right at the point where the two main types of ice that exist in Antarctica come together.
They've melted their way through the layers to allow them a closer look at these platelets or crystals. While they're incredibly beautiful, they may also serve as a climate change warning.
The only way these ice crystals could be here is if they're formed in water that used to be ice shelf.
8 modified shipping containers have been set up on sea ice in McMurdo Sound, 30 kilometres from Scott Base. The sea ice itself has been expanding, and although that sounds like a positive, it's possibly quite the opposite.
The ocean that's underneath the ice shelf could potentially have been melting it faster and then able to create more sea ice out in the open ocean.
In Antarctica, all ice is not created equal.
We're exchanging a permanent ice for a seasonal type of ice.
Their work attracting attention and also creating the perfect place to take a breath. For residents of a continent struggling to be understood.
Antarctica plays a very significant role in the climate system of the entire globe.
And use the results of this icy cold work to help predict the future of our planet. Lisa Davies, One News.
Now, the festive season is generally a time for stuffing ourselves like the Christmas turkey. But if you're one of those who's trying not to come out of it looking like Santa, here's a tip: weigh yourself often. Kate King explains.
You've decorated the tree, bought the presents and stocked the fridge. But there's something else you might need to do this Christmas.
Are you going to take note of what you eat over the Christmas period?
Yep.
Oh.
Yes, I am. I have to watch my weight as I'm getting older.
No, generally I think around that time people just let themselves go.
A study published in the British Medical Journal shows those who weigh themselves over Christmas and know how much exercise it takes to burn foods off are less likely to put on weight.
Well, I think this is probably not a bad piece of evidence-based advice. Weigh yourself before Christmas and a couple of times over the period, and just be aware of what is going in through the mouth.
2/3 of New Zealand adults are considered obese, and Professor Swinburne says eating much more than we usually would at Christmas can stack up.
If you put on half a kilo over the Christmas period, you may lose some of it, but chances are you won't lose all of it. The next Christmas comes along and you put on a few more 100 grams, and so it just accumulates.
Research suggests people will eat about 6,000 calories on Christmas Day. Foodstuffs, which owns New World and Pack and Save, says in the 3 weeks before Christmas last year, it sold 300,000 hams, more than 140,000 Christmas mince tarts, almost 120,000 pavlovas, and a whopping 670,000 punnets of strawberries.
One of the most important things food does is bring people together, and sitting around the table is a really important part of most people's Christmas memories and Christmas rituals, and you wouldn't want to take a thing away from that.
But just for the record, it will take a 70 kg person 21 minutes to run off one fruit mince pie.
Take the opportunities to be active when you can. You go and kick a ball around with kids, play some backyard cricket.
Otherwise, the ghosts of Christmas past may come back to haunt you. Kate King, One News.
Right, Jenny May's got all that, so have I. Jenny May's here. The Black Caps well in control of day 2 of the cricket test.
Here we are for the very last time. Pete, yes, Kane Williamson and Tom Latham absolutely brilliant with the bat this afternoon, both notching up half centuries at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Latham, though, going on to claim his 7th test century.
That one there. No, he can't beat mid-off. He'll have to run 2. He goes to 99. Well, he'll pick it up on an overthrow.
Yes, and low blow Joe, Kiwi heavyweight boxer Joseph Parker sheds the nice guy tag for a controversial knockout win. And fresh off winning Team of the Year at the New Zealand Rugby Awards, Seven Sisters captain Sarah Goss claims more silverware. Before I go, Pete, on your final night, I would just like to say on behalf of the sports team, it's been an honour and a privilege. And for me personally, it has... Keep it together, Jenny May. Thank you for your friendship and thank you for your guidance as well. And I have, although I'm very, very sad, I have some wonderful memories of us working together. So thank you, Pete, and I wish you well.
Kia ora. Jenny May, thank you. Renee is here with the weather next.
07.
Kia ora, welcome back. It's been a very enjoyable, settled Sunday across Aotearoa under a strong ridge of high pressure. Just some low cloud about the east of the South Island and a few showers around the edge of the high affecting northeastern parts of the North Island. Morning fog about Whangarei, Hamilton, Whenuapai, Bay of Islands and Gisborne today, and another warm day for much of the country, but coldest along the eastern South Island. You can see high teens for many, Oamaru with the lowest maximum temperature of 17. Westport and Nelson hit 22 degrees, Masterton, Kapiti, Levin and Napier all sitting at 23 today. Taumaranui, the hot spot on 28 and mid-20s in the north. Hamilton and Auckland shared a high of 26 degrees. So there we are, sitting pretty, mostly clear sky across New Zealand and much of the Tasman Sea. Just some dull low cloud over the east of the country, but bright frontal cloud extends down the east of Australia and into the western Tasman Sea. The high over New Zealand drifts northwards tomorrow. That allows this nasty system east of Australia to move towards us, approaching the southwest tomorrow night. Strong norwesterlies precede this system, spreading across the South Island, driving up the mercury in eastern areas, so a warm day is forecast for you. Cloudy areas in the north with isolated showers, otherwise it's fine and sunny after areas of morning cloud and fog burn off, and light winds for everyone here, and a fine day for the South Island apart from areas of morning cloud. However, it clouds over in Fiordland with patchy drizzle developing there, turning to rain in the evening, strengthening winds across your Monday. Morning cloud, then fine for the south of the south. A warm 28 for Alexandra, Invercargill and Dunedin share a top of 25. A mainly fine morning with cloud for the west, light rain or drizzle developing with norwesterlies from late morning for Milford Sound, and fine after early morning low cloud in the east. Gusty norwesterlies pump up the heat after lunch. Blenheim, you're aiming for a top of 29 degrees. A warm fine day through here, but there will be periods of cloud too. Norwesterlies after lunch and a top of 25 for Palmerston North and Whanganui. Slip, slop and slap on a sun hat if you're out and about the east. Keep a cool drink nearby Masterton. 29 is where you're heading. And morning fog returns on Monday for Tokoroa. 25 is your high. Fine spells across the centre north and the odd afternoon shower for Whakatane. And mostly fine with light winds and a chance of a shower for the north. Whitianga gets one or two with afternoon showers and a top of 23. Dunedin's fine apart from areas of morning cloud, gusty nor'westerlies after lunch and a top of 25 degrees. Lots of sunshine for you, Christchurch, after morning low cloud clears. Warm gusty nor'westerlies in the afternoon and 27 is your high. Cloud at both ends of the day, Wellington, otherwise fine for you. Winds pick up the pace in the evening and 22 is your high. Foggy at first Hamilton, then fine apart from a possible afternoon shower. Light winds and 26 degrees. Cloud morning and night for Tauranga, otherwise fine, light winds and a high of 23. And you get a fine Monday too, Auckland, apart from the odd shower lingering about from late morning, light winds and 25 is your high. So the ridge over the country shifts to the North Island on Tuesday as the frontal system moves on to the South Island. The system slowly continues to move over the country during Wednesday, then into Thursday, bringing gale force winds and periods of rain. Apart from showers in Brisbane and Hobart, it's fine and dry story for Australia. A hot 41 degrees for Alice, that's 6 degrees above average. And rain and thunderstorms for Niue and Fiji, showers in Tonga and the Southern Cooks. So a settled start to the working week for most of us. However, a system from the west will bring wet and windy conditions to the south from Tuesday. That is your weather. Pete, last time we're going to do this. I'm going to miss you. You've been my bud and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you. So thank you. Now look who's here, Wendy and Simon. And with a very special little surprise for a very special man.
That's right, Renee. There is no good sorts tonight, but we are farewelling and paying tribute to a real good sort of our own. Now, you may recognise this fresh-faced young fella here. Yes, he was a little bit younger then. Yes, he had a little bit more hair, but you've got to admit he is smooth and still is
that
smooth.
That shot in particular.
That's exactly right. And after nearly 40 years in the TV game, 39 years, 8 months to be exact, Peter is leaving TVNZ.
Yes, indeed. He's covered 7 Olympics, numerous Commonwealth Games, rugby and cricket World Cups, and of course being a keen golfer, a couple of Masters tournaments too, you lucky bugger. And from breakfast to One News at 6 to Mastermind and numerous other broadcasting roles, Pete's been a constant presence on our screen, literally, for decades.
From all the One News family, I'd like to say, and I'm sure the viewers would like to say, all the best to you, Pete. We absolutely adore you. We're going to miss you so much. And last words, Kia.
Kia waimaria, haere rā. Thanks for the memories, Pete.
And thank you guys for your collegiality over the years and for your friendship as well.
Just a minute, we've just got a little few clips.
Have a look at this.
The sporting 70s were a 10-year period different from any other in the history of sport. Yet not because the only of the players who won in Canada, including tour matches.
Sweet, sweet memories you gave me. You can't beat the memories you gave me.
Well, climax Sport 81 with the announcement of the JVC Sports Personality of the Year. The winner to receive this JVC colour television set. Glenn Turner, you were with me in the commentary box that day in Auckland. Do you remember it as a fairly unique kind of cricketing occasion as far as New Zealand's concerned?
Well, it's not unique in the fact that we won.
For the average club golfer, it can be the most infuriating game of all. The object being to hit a small ball any distance up to 600 yards with a funny shaped thing called a golf club into a small hole just 4.5 inches in diameter.
Peter, I guess the All Black selectors couldn't really have asked for much better than what they got down there today.
Indeed, Brendan, as far as the atmosphere alone was concerned, we had sunshine, lovely ground, big crowd and 2 very fine games of rugby. This means 4, this means 6, this means you're out. But here on Saturday there could be a new umpire's signal used for the first time in New Zealand, and it goes like this. The first step towards World Cup glory. Peter Williams, One Network News. As they say, good health. Good health. Good health. And after 100 years, the Olympic movement is as strong as ever. That concludes our coverage. Thank you for bearing with us.
These are the dreams you will say.
as time goes by, I think that we'll see farewell services, individual services for the 29 victims.
Yes, 4 contenders tonight who all think they have what it takes to be New Zealand's mastermind.
It generously with love. You can't beat the memories you gave.
It is a very happy occasion for the Sevens fans in Fiji. Thank you for joining us for this One News special on the aftermath of the major 7.5 earthquake.
Yeah, I do know what's going to happen tonight, but I'm not going to tell you because that would spoil the surprise. There's enough possibilities here to make the way of our future a much smoother ride. Peter Williams, One Network News.
I don't remember many of those incidents. So yes, this is my last broadcast here on TV1. I first appeared on this network, in fact, in July of 1979 as a rugby league commentator, and I wasn't a very good one either. Over the years, I've had a few jobs here, reported a few stories, seen a bit of the world and enjoyed, well, pretty much all of it. But everything must finish. So to my colleagues over the decades, thank you for your talent and your hard work and support. But most importantly, to you, our audience, thank you for your extraordinary loyalty, which makes this the most watched program on New Zealand television every day. Maybe we'll meet again someday. From One News, good night.
We've got to bring you out some flowers. Got the flowers. And the flowers.
There's a few people who want to say hello.
You've been extraordinary, Peter.
A lady for next year. Hey.
Keep talking.
You're right. Hey, keep talking. Thank you so much, everybody. Oh my goodness.